The carnivore diet, I think, maybe, I'm hoping, fixed my back. I know, sounds absolutely ridiculous. And I'm not saying that it definitely did, but it's really, really possible. If it didn't, this is the craziest coincidence that I've ever experienced in my life.
In a world where nuclear war has begun, vampires fought back in super real 3D.
You are stupid. But the only guy that's good looking enough to do this, so that's okay.
Over a decade ago, my back went out completely for the first time ever. I couldn't lie down, I couldn't stand up. I mean, nothing worked. I needed help getting to places. I had to go to the chiropractor a bunch. I eventually got back in line. Now, that's been an issue that comes like annually. I'll kind of go out and I'll start tilting, right? My hip, my pelvic tilt starts to shift. But here's the deal. 3 years ago, something new emerged in my back pain that had me miffed. And it's not my lower back, it's actually up here in the middle of my back, right off the spine. And I get this pain that happens if I breathe in too fast, if I stand up, if I squat down. I haven't been able to lie on a bed and read a book for longer than 5 minutes at a time for the last 3 years. And even when it's completely fixed and it's not bothering me, it's still susceptible. All I have to do is just sit on a couch wrong for 10 minutes and it starts to come back. So I've had to monitor this constantly. It's really bad. So I've tried a lot of things. I've gone to chiropractors, neuromuscular physician. I have studied my ass off on YouTube, reading different physical therapies. I have looked at diet. Over 2 years ago, I started doing intermittent fasting. I still do intermittent fasting. That did help some, but I didn't necessarily correlate it with my back. I was doing intermittent fasting for different reasons, for other health reasons, and I still love intermittent fasting, and I've combined it with this new carnivore diet. Carnivore diet, what does that actually mean? It means that I eat absolutely nothing but meat. A little teeny bit of sauces. I've been sneaking in a little bit of sauces, and you're allowed to have animal-made products, cheese, I can have some dairy, I can have eggs, but with dairy, it's really based solely on you and how lactose intolerant you are. You have to eat a lot of meat, and you want to eat fatty meats. And I literally ate like it had to have been at least 1.5 pounds of steak in one sitting. And 5 minutes later, I was training my son in a workout, and I'm running down the road with him. I couldn't do that if I ate anything else of that quantity. You don't get full on full. In fact, I've been getting trimmer. I've been actually dropping weight even though I've been eating bacon and fatty cuts of steak, because you need to give your body enough substance that it's going to become it turns into basically a fat burning machine. You've probably heard of ketosis, and you're probably thinking Atkins. The thing is that with Atkins, there's a lot of different things that you could eat that would qualify as zero carb, and that's different than specifically eating meat. Because if you just eat meat, in particular red meat being the healthiest because the entire amino profile of it checks out to cover all the covers all the basis of what you'd need it to cover for a healthy diet, and all the other stuff that you might need is actually just needed to process the other food that you would be taking in. If you cut that out, you don't need those things to process it, even things like apparently vitamin C, because vitamin C is like actually what helps you metabolize your carbohydrate intake. That's why you actually need vitamin C. Apparently. All right, I'm just giving you the rundown here of all the information I've accumulated. If you kick all that stuff to the curb, it's the ultimate elimination diet, and you can just slowly put things back into your diet and see. Why did I even think to try a carnivore diet to fix my back? Well, I listened to a lot of podcasts. I listened to a lot of information about this stuff. I first heard about it through Shawn Baker, Dr. Shawn Baker. He did a podcast on Rogan. A lot of that stuff sounded a little bit like, what? He was making some claims that sounded pretty fishy. I was curious though, what? And something was mentioned about helping people with arthritis. Now, I don't know officially that I have arthritis or not. There is a symptom called ankylosis spondylitis. I think it's called ankylosis spondylitis. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but basically it's arthritis in your spine. And the symptoms of it come and go. Everything really mirrored a lot of what I had, except this whole muscle spasm thing. And I think that's maybe just a unique thing to me. Now, maybe it's a bulging disc. I don't know. But the bottom line is that a lot of people that were having joint pains, arthritic pains, diabetes, anxiety, and depression, well, All those things, there's like countless people that you can look up online, and I encourage you to, and I'll put links below of this information, but countless people are talking about how they're reversing all those symptoms and coming off of any medications that they had to take for them. I was like, what? And then I heard Jordan Petersen mention it, and his daughter who had this crazy pain going on where I think she lived on crutches for 2 or 3 years of her life, and her bones would just break super easy. Like, she's had a terrible hardship of a life, and all of her symptoms have subsided currently. She's been on it for 8 months. Dr. Shawn Baker has been eating nothing but meat for 15 months. Maybe at this point it's been close to 2 years. I'm listening to older podcasts at times. But there's a lot of lineage of people that are carnivorous eaters. Why is there even a possibility that plants might be causing that issue? Well, all right, look, I don't know how much information you might be familiar with, but I've listened to a lot of podcasts and information, and Radiolab had this amazing episode. And basically, it was a story about how plants communicate with one another. Now, they communicate with each other through mycelium networks, which is fungi, and it's amazing. Like, trees can actually talk to each other across the forest, being neural networked with mycelium. And this is not fantasy, this is scientific fact, because trees or plants, they can communicate through this method where they'll actually start to emit toxins to prevent things from eating them, for instance. Or they might even produce low quantities of toxins that gradually decline the population of a certain insect or something like that. On all the tests where they're actually studying the benefits of plants, they're taking out single compounds, okay? They're like not using the entire 52 compound matrix that makes up the essence of the plant. They're pulling out like single stuff, so things like sulforaphane in broccoli, for instance. They're pulling this compound out for their testing in rats to see what benefits it can help sustain for keeping cancer at bay and tumors at bay so they don't grow anymore. And there's amazing research happening with that right now. But what they're not factoring in is the other 49 some odd compounds that make up the essence of broccoli, for instance. And there are actually like aspects that in high doses, they might have other adverse effects for the quantity of intake that you'd have to have in order to get the benefits of that much of a concentrated amount of sulforaphane, for instance. And you could apply that general concept that I'm not vouching for being true to any kind of plant that you eat. And there's a possibility that maybe it's triggering something. Now, I do want to slowly bleed things back into my diet. I think the next thing I'm going to try is probably going to be mushrooms, which fit an interesting bill because they're kind of in between plants and animals. And then I might try, I don't know, onions. What if it turned out that it was just one thing? I don't know. Maybe it is just one thing. Maybe the all-meat diet isn't total necessity. And if that is the case, then great. I'll slowly figure that out. But I gotta really take my time with it, because you can actually have, apparently, some people have experienced onset delayed reactions to taking in things a couple of days later after they've eaten it. And I would think to just associate it with what I feel like 12 hours to 24 hours later. But apparently you can feel the side effects of things, even 48 hours, sometimes 3 days later. So that's crazy too. But if I can reintroduce things back in, awesome. I hope that I can. I'll slowly get there. I'm going to try and go at least 60 days just meat, not reintroduce anything, see if this sustains. If I go that long without my back hurting and feeling like this, then come on. There's just no question that there's something in my diet that was making my back spasms trigger like this. As far as other side effects with the diet, so far there are none. I mean, you might say like, oh, it's bad for your kidneys, it's bad for your cholesterol. Cholesterol is highly debatable. There's good cholesterol, there's bad cholesterol. Cholesterol in general, you do want to have it because it helps you produce testosterone. You're going to throw your body out of whack if you don't have enough cholesterol. There's a lot of debate with that. As far as kidneys, I've been looking at blood work that people have been getting back that have been on this diet for anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half, and there's no situations going on there. The blood work actually checks out to be very, very healthy. Look, I'm only, at this point, 8 days in? No, 9. This is the 9th, 10 days. I'm in 10 days deep on this, okay? And I will tell you that my back finally experienced relief that I hadn't experienced for the last year. I started experiencing the relief just sliding into the diet because I took 5 days to wean my way into it. So if you have inflammation issues, if you have back issues, if you have joint issues, if you have Anxiety and depression. I mean, I get a little bit of anxiety. My job's pretty, it's high pressure, man. I will say, honestly, right now, my anxiety does feel even more manageable. Like, I mean, I've always been able to manage it. That's why I can accomplish what I do. But it'll get me sometimes. And currently, right now, I feel just really good. I mean, listen to how fast I'm talking. Maybe you don't need to do it, but if you have some pains or if you have depression, you have anxiety, you might want to give it a shot. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying what's worked for me, and I'm going to give you links of different pages that you can look at, different video clips that you can look at, of people vouching for the same thing happening for them. I feel great. I feel like I can totally thrive on this right now. And I'll give you guys an update in a couple of months, and we'll see where this lands. I guess you can go ahead and stick up for the plant thing. Look, I'm not saying I love plants. You guys don't even know. I used to eat. I'm the salad guy. I know that people are like, oh, you eat, I eat a ton of meat, but over the years I've eaten less and less and less meat, and I've eaten more and more and more salad, and my back got worse and worse and worse and worse. So it might be a correlation going on
Movie
here.
voice.
Every day, an epic salad. I mean, we're talking kale, romaine, tomato. It'd either be more of a fruit-based salad or it'd be a vegetable-based salad, but tomatoes.